quite excited, and that is because just yesterday I received 2 of these in the mail. Now, what are these, you ask? Well, these are mufflers, but they're not just any mufflers. They've been modified with what's called the Pfister mod, or the Pfister D mod, and more about that in a second. But in order to understand what that mod is, you have to understand how the muffler works. So this is a factory muffler from my car, a 996, and when it's in the vehicle, it's orientated like this, with these pipes facing the rear of the vehicle and this side facing the front. It goes right behind the rear wheel. And the way that it works is exhaust gases come in this lower pipe after passing through the catalytic converter. They go through the muffler, which, if you've never seen the inside of a muffler, consists of a bunch of baffles to reduce the noise. And it comes out the top pipe, takes a quick bend and goes straight out the tailpipe below the bumper. So that's how the factory exhaust works. However, there was a factory option called the PSE, the Porsche Sport Exhaust. And what that did, or what that consisted of, is an additional pipe that came out of this hole here and went up, turned, and straight into this exhaust or exit pipe. Now, there was a solenoid here that allowed you to open or close this pipe with a button on the dash. And when you opened it, it made it louder. And the reason that it made it louder is because once the exhaust gases came from the catalytic converter into the muffler, they were able to bypass a majority of the baffles and come out of this hole and then go to this pipe, while some of them still went through the whole process. But basically, it made the exhaust louder, it made it sound cooler. Pretty much unanimously, everybody seems to think it sounds a lot better with the PSE rather than stock. And then somebody came along, actually probably multiple people came along, because this is a popular mod on other vehicles as well. But there's a guy named Pfister out in California who's really kind of put his name on the mod, and it's called the Pfister mod or the Pfister hack. And essentially they figured out, hey, if we just weld a pipe from here to here, we can get actually a little bit more of an aggressive tone than the PSE provided, and it's just always on, and it's a lot cheaper than going out and getting all the parts or the mufflers with the PSE already on them. So that's how it works in a nutshell. It's called a partial muffler bypass, so it's not a full muffler bypass. And this is the product, the final product. So I talked to Darren. Darren was great to work with. If you do go through him, I recommend calling rather than emailing, because like most shop owners, he's not sitting at his computer all day. He's out in the shop working, so it's easier just to get him on the phone if you have questions. And typically what he does is you'll send in your mufflers, or he'll send you a new set, and then you send in your old ones as cores, because these mufflers, obviously aren't cheap. Unfortunately, my mufflers, like the one I just showed you, had some corrosion and some splitting, and they weren't suitable as cores. So I talked to Darren about it, I sent him pictures, he said, hey, those won't work. So I asked him to just send me a set. So he went online somewhere, he got a set of used ones that were suitable. He applied the mod to them, he cleaned them up and painted them very nicely, put his logo on it, which is kind of cool, even though you won't see this once it's in the car, but you will see this edge if you look, like when you're doing oil changes and things like that, and you will see this side as well. So kind of cool that it's painted. On to the mod. So as you can see, there's a pipe here connecting these two. I don't know the exact diameter. If I had to guess, I'd say 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches is what he's using. I actually had bought a 2-inch diameter pipe when I was considering doing this mod myself, and I decided against it because, as you can see, you need a nice bend here, and I didn't have a tube bender, which would be required to do this. And when I added up all the costs of buying the tools necessary, it just made sense to have Darren do it, especially because he does this for a living, and he's trial and errored a whole bunch of different configurations and settled on this one. And based on all the reviews on Renlist and online, he does a great job, and the results are great. So what this does is it makes it sound more aggressive without that annoying drone at highway speeds that you might get with like a muffler bypass or a more aggressive exhaust system. So that's it for now. I'm excited to just go ahead and get this installed and see how it sounds. I did some before video of what the exhaust sounds like, and I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison back and forth very quickly at the end of this video, because I found that there aren't that many before and afters that really line it up so you can really hear the difference too well. So I'm going to make a point to do that. So if you want to skip ahead to the end of the video, you can hear it before and after, side by side, and I'll repeat it a few times so it's really easy to see the difference. More to come. A real quick pro tip on reinstallation, actually two things here. One, the first thing are these bolts that actually attach the muffler to the mounting bracket. Put the bolts in upside down with the nuts on the top, because then whoever comes along next, or even you later on, can remove the muffler without having to take the bracket off. And the bracket's held on by 3 rusted nuts on the inside, and they're really difficult to get to. And if you've taken it off, you know. However, if you put these on upside down, you're able to just take that nut off the top, drop that long bolt all the way through, and then slide the muffler off sideways without removing the bracket. So do yourself a favor, install those bolts upside down. And the second part are these clamps here, these band clamps or V-clamps. Put these on with the nut facing the front of the car on the outside. And you can leave them a little bit loose, because that way, once you get your bumper back on, you can get the your tailpipes positioned symmetrically and just right before you tighten these up, and that way you can loosen them and adjust them as well. So tighten them up a little bit to hold them in place, but then that way you can come in and fine tune it once the bumper's back on. This is going to be the first start with the Pfister exhaust. It's definitely louder. That sounds awesome. Wow. Alright, we're gonna go for a little drive. Still not warmed up yet, so low RPMs. It sounds a lot different. Surprisingly different than the stock exhaust. I wasn't expecting it to be this different in like tone. That's awesome. I like it. I don't think I could ever get tired of hearing that. I don't know how well it's picking up on the camera. But just kind of cruising along here at 48 miles an hour at a steady speed. It's slightly louder than it was, but as soon as you give it a little bit of gas, you hear it. That guy at the light was pointing my car out to his son. Oh, it sounds glorious. Gosh. I don't think you're able to hear it and truly appreciate it. So I would imagine if it sounds this good, like the 2,000 to 3,000 RPM range, it's just going to be screaming at 7,000. So, final thoughts and impressions. These are definitely worth every penny. I had a little bit of an awkward or strange situation because my cores weren't suitable for exchange. So Darren actually sourced cores for me. It cost a little bit more because obviously I didn't send back cores, but he found a great set of mufflers. He cleans them up really nicely, paints them in a special silvery paint. He also has different coatings available for extra money, and he does a really nice job of installing the bypass. Plus, he's great to work with, and he stands behind the product. I know some people on the forums just take their mufflers into a local shop, have them weld the bypass. It's a pretty simple procedure, assuming nothing goes wrong. And when it comes to your car, I'd much rather pay a little bit more of a premium and work with somebody like Darren that I know has great standing within the community, stands behind his product. He does it the right way. It comes all cleaned up. It looks great. It fit perfect. They sound awesome. They sound really good. So if you're not used to it, it might sound factory, which I think is nice because you don't want your car to sound like a Honda Civic with a big muffler. So it sounds throaty. It has a nice growl to it. It's not over the top, but it's loud enough to where you're going to notice a difference as the owner day in and day out, but it's not going to annoy you. It's not going to annoy your passengers. You can still have a phone call in the car, although you probably need to put the windows up, and it doesn't drone on the highway. So overall, a great mod. It's not something I think is going to impact resale at all. I think, in fact, it's a plus. You know, if I were going to go buy another one and I saw that it already had the Pfister mod, I'd be like, this is great, because that's going to save me the time and the hassle of doing it. Swapping out the actual mufflers is something that you can do in your garage. I had a lot of trouble with it because of some corrosion on bolts. I basically had to cut and drill every single bolt out that was involved in the exhaust to get the mufflers off. However, now that that's been done and I replaced them with new bolts and anti-seize, I don't think I'm gonna have any more problems. Removing the rear bumper is pretty straightforward. All in all, I would say a couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours to get them out, 2 to 3 hours to put them back in, if you do it yourself and you don't run into any big unexpected problems. If you've done it before, you probably do it a lot faster the second time. So the other reason to go through Darren is because when I do go to sell the car, I can say it has a Pfister exhaust, and not just the Pfister mod done at some muffler shop down the road. This was done by Darren Pfister. If there's ever a problem, which there never will be based on the quality of the work that I've seen, he's going to stand behind it. They look awesome. He painted them in this really cool silver color, and for the most part you can't see them installed in the car, but if you look behind the rear wheels or when you have the rear wheels off, you can see them, and it's nice to see that rather than the rusted muffler I was used to seeing. So thanks a lot, Darren. I appreciate you working with me on this, and I'm really happy with the results.